The Indianapolis Colts have traded for quarterback Matt Ryan. Indy gave the Atlanta Falcons a 2022 third-round pick for Matt Ryan, and the Colts now have a new starting quarterback. And he's going to be 37 this fall. It's not like he's a spring chicken, which I have no idea where that where does that come from? I don't know, but I've heard that my whole life, so we're going to say it, I guess. Well, gosh, what if that's offensive? There's no way spring chicken is offensive, but it's like, man, he's not a young guy. He's an old quarterback near the end of his career, and I think it's a better deal for Matt Ryan than it is for Indy, actually. Indy's glad because they've got a quarterback they can trust week one next year, and he's better than Carson was probably, and they didn't make the playoffs last year largely because Carson played bad in the last couple games of the year. So Indy, I'm sure, feels good. They're like, yeah, we got an answer that for next year is going to be better than what we had last year. Fair enough. But I think it's better for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was wasting years of his life in Atlanta, going nowhere fast on a rebuilding football team. So for him, going to Indy is a very much welcome upgrade. Having a better team around him and a team that's more functional and more set up to win. But for the Colts, this isn't a long-term solution. It's another veteran quarterback, and I guess he's better than no quarterback. And Matt Ryan, I'm not trying to be negative or bad to say the guy's bad, but this is not Matthew Stafford going to the LA Rams. I mean, the Colts are still a few moves away from really being a Super Bowl contender, and likely because they don't really have a first-round pick, and they don't have left tackle. They have no wide receiver they have Michael Pittman Jr. They have Paris Campbell, but I don't know that Paris Campbell is really a true number 2 receiver, so they need another receiver or two. Don't have a lot of draft picks. I mean, I think the Colts are a couple of years away from really becoming the juggernaut Super Bowl contender they had potential to be going into the last couple of years, and Matt Ryan might miss the window. Matt Ryan's basically a rental, kind of like Phillip Rivers was, where it's a guy at the end of his career that I don't know is really the final piece of the puzzle they need. Can Matt Ryan elevate a team with some holes to a Super Bowl? I don't think so. And so I'm like, well, I'm glad the Colts have a quarterback that's better than nothing. I'm really surprised that they didn't make a move to get somebody younger. Somebody you could have built around Jordan Love. And then you've got, that 7 years from now, if Jordan Love is good, he's your starting quarterback. Matt Ryan, there's no guarantee 5 years from now he's their quarterback. And, I mean, kind of a fun game to play, honestly, is who will last longer? Who's going to be on their new team longer? Is Matt Ryan going to be in Indianapolis longer, or will Carson Wentz be in Washington longer? Commander Carson might outlast Matt Ryan, and that'd be kind of awkward. If Carson Wentz goes to Washington and does well, and Matt Ryan in a couple of years is washed up and out of the league, you're like, wow, the Colts really just gave up on Carson and now have nothing again. So we're into a weird cycle where the Colts just keep committing to veteran quarterbacks, and it keeps not ending up being a long-term solution for them. Now, Matt Ryan could shock me. I'm open to the possibility that he could play really well into his 40s. Quarterbacks are playing longer than ever. But Matt Ryan, unlike Aaron Rodgers, unlike Tom Brady, has never struck me as a guy who takes incredibly great care of his body. He's totally committed. And he, in the last couple of years, now maybe that's because Atlanta hasn't been very good, and maybe the offensive line a couple of years ago was bad, and maybe Matt Ryan, partially why it looked like he was getting worse was because the team around him wasn't very good. I'm open to that being possible. It's not that he's bad that I don't feel amazing about this trade. It's that he's old. And I'm like, well, I really would have rather seen the Colts get a younger quarterback. I can't say that enough. I thought that someone like Baker Mayfield, who, gosh, no one seems to want, that's a whole can of worms there. Jordan Love, somebody with more of a future that could end up having potential to being your long-term solution. I thought that was more enticing for a team that I think is still a few years away from a Super Bowl, but I want to give Matt Ryan some respect, though, too. He's a guy who's been in the NFL for 14 years. He is the best quarterback in the history of the Atlanta Falcons. He's thrown for 59,735 yards. That's 8th all-time in passing yards, 367 touchdown passes. That's 9th all-time behind some really good names like Big Ben, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. Like the guys that Matt Ryan is alongside in the all-time record list is like, these guys are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I mean, it's pretty, I don't want to like disrespect Matt Ryan. And it's kind of cool to see him go like I said, to go to a new team where he actually has an opportunity to do well and win games at the end of his career is something that I'm hallelujah. Manna from heaven. I'm so glad to see that because it was really frustrating. Like 2 years in a row now, I've been like, Matt Ryan's just wasting time in a bad situation in Atlanta where they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So, and look, he took the best team Atlanta ever had to a Super Bowl. And you can't really ask much more from your quarterback than that when you give them a great team, they play really well. He won the MVP. They had a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. We don't need to tell you what happened. They did lose that Super Bowl. But he's a really good quarterback. So I feel very weird here because on one hand, awesome. They finally solved their problem. But I wish he wasn't 37 this fall. I wish he had more years, and I felt like he could be their long-term solution, and it feels like great, you're putting duct tape over a problem that really just needs a new long-term piece. And I say all the time, like duct tape quarterbacks mean that when you have a problem that you need to really solve, if your pipe bursts in your house and you put duct tape over it, it works for maybe a little bit, or like Flex Seal or something, right? Where you're like, oh, we can fix the pipe for a little bit, but after a while, it doesn't work long term, and you got to just replace the pipe. I don't know that Matt Ryan isn't someone they're going to have to replace in 2 years, and then you're back to square one again. And the reality is, if you make a couple moves you need to make, you draft a left tackle, you draft a receiver, 3 years from now, when this team is really ready to make a long run, Matt Ryan might not be good anymore. So I'm like, cool, but I'm hesitant, and we'll see how it works out. And look, I guess here's the thing. Matt Ryan's better than nothing. So at least the Colts have a plan now at quarterback, and it could be much worse. It could be more exciting too, though. And I'm kind of like, well, we'll see.